Hello YouTube. One of the most iconic parts of Skyrim is the use of the Thuum, the legendary power of using magic through one's voice by using the ancient dragon language in order to shout your enemies into dust. But despite this awesome power existing, there are 4 characters in Skyrim who, in terms of the power of their voices, are extremely overpowered, but they almost never use it to fight, and who say that they follow the so-called Way of the Voice. Those are the Greybeards, and today I want to delve a little bit into their philosophy. Why are they so against the power of the voice being used for combat, and how did that belief come to be? We'll talk about all of that and more after the intro. So, the Way of the Voice, a doctrine that's part philosophy and part lifestyle. It is followed religiously by the Greybeards, the ancient order of monks living in the monastery on the throat of the world, who dedicate their lives to the study of the ancient dragon language and isolate themselves from the rest of the world while seeking inner harmony. They believe that the mysterious and ancient power of the Thuum, where one manifests magical energy using their voice to unleash powerful spells, is a holy gift given by Kinnereth, or Kain depending on the pantheon, to humanity for the sake of both understanding the world, to worship the gods, and to achieve inner harmony. They believe it to be wasteful and disrespectful to the gods to use this magical power in combat, except in cases of true need. You see, they believe that the Thuum is not a weapon bestowed upon humanity to possibly oppress and beat down others, rather they see it as a gift from the gods to be used wisely. For example, if I interpreted this correctly, even saving your own life can in some circumstances not be a true need, as dying in an honorable way can be a more respectful way of dealing with this power that the gods gave you than using it for combat. At least that's the way I interpret some of the text and dialogue. Some of this is very interpretive, and I can imagine that, for example, dying in honorable combat in some cases without using the voice can be seen as more honorable than winning while using the voice. Although there are definitely cases within the Way of the Voice where the usage of the Thuum for combat is allowed, because you see, originally back in the Meretic era, when dragons, the original users of the voice, ruled over humanity and humanity rebelled against their rule in the legendary Dragon War, some dragons, Parthenax chiefly among them, defected to the side of humanity and taught them how to use the Thuum so that they could use the dragon's own power against them and then turn the tide of the war, ending the dragon's oppression. This use of the Thuum in combat has not been condemned after the invention of the philosophy of the Way of the Voice. Rather, the Dragon War and humanity, or at least part of humanity in the early Nords, wanting to free themselves from the tyranny of the dragons, was considered to be a true need. So using the voice to end tyranny and oppression is definitely allowed. As is it allowed if your destiny is to use the voice to defeat a great evil, as in the case of the Dragonborn in Skyrim. That having been said, after the humans, or rather again the early Nords, freed themselves from the dragon's rule, they retained their mastery of the voice and would use it not just to free themselves from tyranny, but they then used it for the purpose of conquest and to establish their rule over others when they conquered all of Skyrim and parts of Morrowind and High Rock. This use of the voice has become condemned by the Way of the Voice and is not seen as a true need, and rather in the Way of the Voice, the usage of the voice in these conquests to subjugate others is being viewed as a hugely disrespectful thing against the gift of the gods. In fact, it was in these conquests of the Nordic Empire that the Way of the Voice was born. You see, the Nords back then saw themselves as undefeatable due to their gift. Their greatest leaders and generals were all voice users, or tongues as they were called back then. And within Nordic armies, many seemingly knew how to use the voice. According to the lorebook Children of the Sky, they didn't even need siege weapons to take a city, rather they would just shout the gate down with the combined power of several tongues. They were nearly unstoppable and conquered most of northern Tamriel using this power. They were, however, very much not undefeatable, despite what they themselves thought. You see, when trying to conquer more of Morrowind, specifically Vvardenfell, the Nords suffered a spectacular defeat against the combined forces of the Chimer, who were the progenitors of the Dark Elves before their skin turned ashen, and the Dwemer, the technologically advanced Deep Elves. As far as we know, this was the first major defeat of the Nordic armies at the time, and many were flabbergasted at the defeat. How was it possible that the Nords, who had the gods' very own power at their beck and call, lost against these elves who either rejected the gods in the Dwemer or worshipped the Daedra in the case of the Chimer? While the true answer was probably just that the Nords overestimated their own strength and they had overconfidence due to the voice and many victories, one of the Nordic tongues, a man named Jurgen Windcaller, then reflected on the battle and the war through 7 years of meditation. After these 7 years, he became convinced that their loss at the battle had been a punishment of the gods for humanity becoming arrogant and disrespectful in regards to their divine gift of the voice, and that by using the voice to beat down others and oppress others, humanity was no better than the dragons that they had once overthrown with the voice. He became convinced that it was the god's intention, specifically that of the goddess Kain or Kinnereth, depending on the pantheon, for the voice to be used in worship and only as a very last resort in battle. And that study of the dragon language, where one ponders and meditates on the true meaning of the words and then projects them into energy, if said true meaning has been grasped by the individual, is not meant for humanity to study so that they could attain a powerful weapon, but rather for the sake of attaining a true understanding of the world by being able to gain a true understanding of the words in the dragon language and then eventually attain inner harmony. The fact that you then get a powerful weapon as a result of this study is coincidental only, and it serves as proof that you have true understanding, with the true understanding and enlightenment in the ways of the world being the true reward, not the weapon, which is not to be used. Obviously, when he came with this idea, he faced a lot of skepticism among the other tongues at the time. However, he challenged 17 of the most powerful tongues who disagreed with him to show that the gods were in agreement with him, probably thinking that if he, one lone tongue, could defeat the most powerful voices at the time, he would prove that the gods were on his side. And he did. He managed to defeat all 17 tongues at the same time, after which they acknowledged that Jurgen was probably right, and that it was not combat but worship of the gods and true understanding of the world that should be their goal in studying the dragon language. Jurgen Windcaller then traveled to the highest mountain, the throat of the world, with many of his new followers, and he established there the monastery of High Hrothgar, where he and his followers would become the Greybeards and dedicate themselves to the way of the voice. And while many doctrines and orders die out over the years on Tamriel, the Greybeards would continue to exist for over 3,000 years, long until Jurgen Windcaller's death. Even Parthenax, who just so happened to live on the throat of the world waiting for Alduin's return, and who was the original teacher of the voice to humanity, would join the Greybeards and dedicate himself to Jurgen's way of the voice as a way to overcome his own dominating dragon nature. And over the years, many of Skyrim's voice users would also join the way of the voice and come to study with the Greybeards to even learn the voice. And while slowly but surely the combat use of the voice kinda died out in Skyrim, the way of the voice in the Greybeards remained strong, all the way up until our gameplay in the Elder Scrolls V Skyrim. The interesting thing is that the Greybeards even survived Tiber Septim's College of the Voice. There was a sort of short-lived idea of Tiber Septim to make another college in Skyrim which taught the ways of the voice to young students, but other than a throwaway mention, we know nothing about that, and it seems to have died out over the years, and the Greybeards have definitely survived it, and the way of the voice has as well. And that is about all I can say about the way of the voice for today, and I sincerely hope that you enjoyed this lore video and that I managed to teach you something new about the Elder Scrolls lore today. And if I did, why not give the video a like, as that's the way the mighty YouTube algorithm decides, is this video worthy or is it not? There's also this YouTube hype boost feature, and if you have access to it, doesn't seem like everyone has, but if you have access to it, consider using that as well, would really help me out. And now all that remains for me to be done is to vocally thank my top Patreon supporters: Mr. Bernardo Binda, Gabriel Binda, King Chris 20, Volkior Vargonia, RB Dash, Lexicon, Sword of Bushido, Rakai, Spaceman, Ranger, and James Lynch. It's thanks to these people and all the others on screen who are my lovely Patreon supporters and YouTube members that this channel stays alive and why I can take off time in my job to even make these Elder Scrolls lore videos. So huge thanks to them. Links are in the description if you want to join them and see your name on screen right now. With that being said, I will see all of you in the next Elder Scrolls lore video. Bye bye.